Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. Steven here with Team Euphoric, and today I'm going to be taking you through a 5-minute mobility drill using the MonkeyFeet. This 5-minute hip mobility drill is comprised of 5 separate movement sequences. For each sequence, you are going to perform it for a total of 30 seconds each before moving on to the next, and you are going to perform all 5 on one leg before switching over to the opposite leg. In terms of what you're going to need some type of platform to elevate the non-working limb. I'm going to be using a plyo box, but you could use whatever you have available. You could use an aerobic stepper, you could use a really thick textbook. Use what you got. And if you do need something to balance, you can use something like a dowel rod for support, or you could use something like the wall to put your hand up against. But in terms of the 5 movement sequences, the first one, we're going to be focusing on flexion and extension of the hip. And you want to make sure that everything is nice and loose. You want to just swing through the movement. You don't want to force it. So you want to try and relax the leg as much as possible. And then you're just going to swing forward and backward. And that is the first sequence. That is going to be the flexion and extension. The next one, we are going to be focusing on adduction with medial rotation. So we're going to cross the midline, turn the toes in. And then we're going to be focusing on abduction with lateral rotation. So as we come out with the leg, we're going to point the toes out. So we're going to stand on the platform, in and out. Toes in, toes out. And that is the abduction and adduction. Next, we're going to do adduction and abduction as well. Only this time, instead of going in front, we are going to go behind the leg. When we go behind, what we want to do is we are going to go into adduction. So we're going to cross the midline and we're going to point the toes out toward the outside. And then as we come forward, we're going to turn the toes in. So this is the third sequence. We're going to get up and toes out, toes in, toes out, toes in, out, in. Next sequence. Now we're going to focus on a medial and lateral rotation of the femur. Only this time, we are going to flex the hip to 90 degrees. And we want to try and keep the knee as straight as possible in line with the coccyx. So we are going to take the knee up, and then we're just going to turn in and out, in and out, in and out. And that is medial and lateral rotation. And then the last sequence, we are going to be focusing on pelvic elevation and depression. For pelvic elevation, we are going to try and compress the area between the ilium and the rib cage. And for pelvic depression, we are going to try and separate that and make as much of a gap as possible. So we're going to stand up, down, elevation, depression, elevation, depression. I'm going to take you through it really quickly now, all in one shot. I'm not going to go through the whole 2.5 minutes. I'm just going to kind of go through the 5 sequences. We got flexion and extension. Then we got adduction with medial rotation and abduction with lateral rotation. Then we got the opposite. Then we got the knee, medial and lateral rotation. And then lastly, we have pelvic elevation and depression. But there you have it. That is my 5-minute hip mobility drill. And this concludes our 52 ways to use the MonkeyFeet.